Functions. A function relates an input to an output, and the output is somehow related to that input. F of x is the classic way of writing a function, but you'll also see it written in other ways. The f of x is the function name. You would say this function as f of x equals x squared. The x is the input. The x squared is the output. Functions have been used in mathematics for a very long time, and lots of different names and ways of writing functions have come about. It's important to be familiar with the different names for the input and output values. The typical input value used is the variable x and f of x for the output. You'll also see domain and range, independent variable, and dependent variable. Functions have special rules. It must work for every possible input value, and there can be only one output value for each input value. The formal definition of a function is that a function relates each element of a set with exactly one element of another set. This means that every element x is related to element y. For every input, there is exactly one output value. And finally, the input values cannot repeat. If a relation doesn't follow these rules, then it is not a function, but instead would be a relation. Does the table below represent a function? Let's review the function rules. First, the function must work for every possible input value. Finally, there cannot be any repeating input values with different outputs. Notice that we have two input values of 3 with different corresponding output values. Therefore, this is not a function. This time, let's determine the rule to this function table. What is happening to the number being inputted? It looks like the input values are being increased by 6 each time. So then our function looks like f of x equals x plus 6. The input and output of a function can be written as an ordered pair as input comma output or x comma f of x. For example, 2 comma 8 means that the function inputs 2 and outputs 8. This tells us that the function can be defined as a set of order pairs. Here, we have a set of order pairs, 1 comma 2, 2 comma 3, and 3 comma 4. The domain of the function is all the input values, 1, 2, and 3. The range is all of the output values, 2, 3, and 4. Does the order pair below represent a function? We have 2 comma 4, 2 comma 5, and 7 comma 3. Let's review the rules of a function. The function must work for every possible input value. There cannot be any repeating input values with different outputs. This set of order pairs is not a function since it says that 2 can relate to both 4 and 5. An independent variable is a variable that can stand alone and isn't changed by the other variables that are being measured. A few examples of independent variables would include age, temperature outside, and days of the week. A dependent variable is a variable that depends on other variables that are being measured. This would include test scores, money earned at work, and ice cream sales. Jasmine works at an Italian restaurant. She gets paid every week. She makes $9.50 an hour plus $80 in tips. First, let's determine the independent and dependent variables. The independent variable would be the time Jasmine spent working. The dependent variable would be her total wage. Next, let's write a rule in function notation. Let's highlight what we know. Using h for hours, we get f of h equals 9.5h plus 80.